So now I want to talk negative exponents because negative exponents of all the exponent rules sometimes is the one that gets confused the most. So when you have something to a negative exponent, so if you have x to the negative third power, what that exponent essentially is saying is I'm in the wrong location. A negative exponent, if it's currently in the numerator, belongs in the denominator. So that's what that means. Now, if it's the other way around, if it's currently in the denominator, it's saying, hey, I belong in the numerator. Good way to think of it is that negative exponent is basically saying, move me. I'm in the wrong place. I need to go to either the top if I was in the bottom or the bottom if I was in the top. So if you look at this multiple choice question on Delta Math, you have a negative exponent here and you have a negative exponent here. Both of those need to switch places. So you're going to have an x to the first on top and you're going to have an x to the third on the bottom. The x to the eighth was not negative. So now I want to simplify a little bit more. Since I have x to the first on the top and I add my powers on the bottom, I have x to the 11th on the bottom. Now I want to figure out basically where do I have more x's and how many more. So I currently have 10 more x's in the bottom than I do in the top. So my answer is 1 over x to the 10th, which looking at the Delta Math is this last choice right here. Let me show you another one. So this is one that the only negative exponent is one of the terms, one of the parts. So this piece right here needs to move to the top. So now I'm going to have x to the third on top. I'm also going to have a y to the eighth on top. I'm going to have x to the seventh on the bottom, and I'm going to have a y to the sixth on the bottom. So now I can look at each variable separately and see where do I have more and how many more. So I'm going to kind of circle it in two different colors just so they stand out a little. I was going to use two different colors. There we go. So with your x's, I have 4 more x's in the bottom, so I'm going to end up with x to the fourth on the bottom. With your y's, I have 2 more y's on the top, so I'm going to end up with y to the second on the top, and that answer is this one. So that's how we deal with negative exponents. Let me show you. I'm going to show you another level of problem here, so we'll look at type 2 just so you can kind of see the difference. So with something like this, so you might see that 5 is negative. It's a negative number, not a negative exponent. So nothing is happening to the negative 5. However, the x is negative, so it needs to go to the bottom. So you're going to leave it like this. You could put it to the first power, or just a plain old x just means the same thing. So you'll move that to the denominator and type in your final answer. Let me show you another one of this type. Let's see if I can find one that's a little more involved. Okay, so this one. So this is moving the whole thing is to the negative 2 power. So I'm going to move that whole thing to the bottom. So when I do that, I'm going to still have the negative 4x, but now it's in the bottom being squared. Once I move it, it's no longer a negative power. But then this problem says it doesn't want parentheses anymore. So you are going to have to square it out. When you take negative 4 times itself, negative 4 times negative 4, you get 16. And then when you take x by itself, you get x squared. Now when you write it in your screen, when you write it on Delta Math, you're going to have 1 divided by, and then the whole thing is in the bottom. So now we're going to do 16, and then x to the second power. It's always more challenging to do on this keyboard. I don't know where my second power is. X to the second power. Nope, that's not going to work. Where's my caret button? I do not know how to do it on this screen. So, yeah, that's going to be much easier. X to the second power. There we go. Try to flip my keyboard a little bit. So that's how you work with negative exponents, both negative exponents when you're just asked to kind of move things around and simplify, or negative exponents when you have it around an entire value.